Hello and welcome into the Addison to 35th podcast. I'm your host for this Cubs episode, Ryan Herrera. And over the last week of Cubs baseball, they went 3-3 on the West Coast against the Dodgers and the San Diego Padres. Now, entering Thursday, well, I'm recording this at some point Thursday. Not all the games have finished, so I want to go with entering Thursday. The Cubs were 12-9. They had an off day today, so they didn't play. 12-9. Their winning percentage was the ninth highest in baseball. They led the National League Central by a game, and they still had a plus 36 run differential, which was second in baseball. So far, again, 21 games into the season, they have looked good. They are leading the division, which is where the Cubs kind of need to be right now. If they're with their goals being the playoffs, with expectations being the playoffs, kind of need to be there, leading the National League Central or right up there at the top of the division, and that's where they are right now. Over the weekend in Los Angeles, they started in Los Angeles against the Dodgers, a 0-3 loss, a 16-0 blowout victory, and a 4-2 W on Sunday to take 2 of 3 from the Dodgers. Then they went out to San Diego, lost 10-4, won the second game 2-1, and then lost to end the road trip 4-2 to the Padres. I know there's a little bit of sour taste from a couple of those losses, especially that last one in San Diego and even that first one in San Diego. But overall, I mean, you're looking at the Dodgers who entered Thursday 14-6, the third best record in baseball, and the Padres were 15-4 with the best record in baseball. And you're looking at two of the World Series favorites right now. You're looking at two of the best teams in baseball. We knew that coming in, especially when you're talking about the Dodgers and coming off their World Series and what they've added and what they maintained in that on that team, in that rotation, in that lineup. Like two of the best teams in baseball, the Cubs managed to split the road trip. Again, road trip in San Diego, in Los Angeles, went 3-3. And all in all, even with a couple of hiccups, a couple of, again, sour taste from a couple of those losses, you're looking at a pretty successful road trip. I think going into it, if Cubs fans heard that the Cubs were going to be 3-3, they would have taken that. Like, of course, if you're a Cubs fan, if you're the Cubs, like you'd love to have won both those series. You didn't end up doing that, but I think you're taking a 500 road trip and heading back to Wrigley for an 8-game homestand. Like that's you're facing two of the best teams in baseball, and you put up a fight. You prove that you're a hard team to beat. There are a couple of issues there that the Cubs still have to figure out, especially when you're talking about some of those bullpen arms. But they proved that they're a tough team to beat, and they can compete and even win against some of the best teams in baseball. That's huge. That's huge for, honestly, like Cubs fans' confidence, I would have to say, but definitely just for the Cubs' confidence that going in, having those expectations and those goals of a postseason appearance this year, and going up and against a couple of the best teams in baseball, teams that you might actually see in the postseason when you get there, and not only just competing but actually winning some games. Like that's a huge road trip for the Cubs and their confidence and moving forward. Like that's a nice series or a nice road trip to have under their belt moving forward. But that's, as positive as that is, obviously that comes with the huge negative news that Justin Steele will miss the rest of the season due to elbow surgery. I believe that is scheduled for Friday, if I'm not mistaken. Season-ending elbow surgery is not what the Cubs wanted to have for Justin Steele, not what Cubs fans wanted to have, and not what Justin Steele himself wanted to happen. Like Justin Steele it should have been a huge part of this team, of that rotation specifically. But now a lost season for him, and the Cubs are going to have to make up some. They're going to have to make up some innings. Obviously, they're going to have to cover the innings that they had kind of hoped and expected Justin Steele to cover. But so take you back to last week, we did talk about Justin Steele was put on the IL last Wednesday with left elbow tendonitis. At that time, there was some hope and even maybe some cautious optimism that it wouldn't be a super extended stint. You're kind of looking at the off days that they have coming up in April as like, okay, they can maybe get through these next couple of weeks if Justin Steele is closer to a minimum stint without maybe needing that fifth starter or fewer of those spot starts in between, and then get Justin back and you're good to go again. But obviously that, the MRI, he had an MRI on the elbow, I believe, last Thursday. And then Craig Counsell told reporters that basically the results were concerning enough that they were seeking a second opinion on it. And then that led to the news on Sunday when Craig Counsell announced to reporters that he was having surgery on the elbow, going in to repair the flexor tendon in the left elbow and also address the ulnar collateral ligament. Apparently, from the results from the MRI and stuff like that, they kind of determined that it was kind of a deteriorating situation, is what the reports were saying, and that it could have just been something that kept happening, and that's ultimately the decision why the decision was made to go with the surgery. Um, you know, you kind of obviously first off you feel for the guy Justin. I mean, he's a great clubhouse presence. He's obviously a really really good pitcher, and he's proven that over the last 3 years. I didn't write it down, but I want to say his ERA from 2022 to 2024 was like ninth in baseball, like one of the best in baseball as far as ERA goes. And just in that 2023 season, fifth place in National League Cy Young voting. I mean, that was his breakout, and he may not have been who you looked at as like maybe compared to Major League Baseball's aces, he may not have been quite that, but he was really, really good and a good number one in this rotation. And you have that, you lose that obviously if you're the Cubs, but then Justin again, you feel for the guy because last season dealt with the same or at least a similar injury. I believe it's the same diagnosis. Last September had a forearm issue in June 2023, and then had Tommy John in 2017 when he was still a minor leaguer. So has dealt with his fair share of injuries, especially now. Uh, they haven't said what specifically the surgery is going to entail. I believe the reports were kind of saying that they won't really know until they go in and start doing the surgery and fully determine exactly what they need to do with Justin, and that's going to or after that is kind of they don't have a set timeline on a return yet, and that's probably something when you don't know exactly what the surgery is going to entail. That's something that should probably come out once they have determined that they've had the surgery and can set a path forward. But all we know for now is that Justin Steele is missing the rest of the season, and that's tough because I mean, even you look at the first four starts of his season this year, 6.89 ERA, a 1.34 WHIP, and had given up 5 home runs. Which he's had a couple stretches in his career the last couple of years where he has given up some home runs in bunches, but those have been few and far between. Like he is not a guy that teams took out of the ballpark that often. So there was a little. It was concerning, but it wasn't something at that point that you're like, okay, something needs to be fixed, right? You were 3 starts into the year, and you felt confident that Justin Steele was going to be who Justin Steele's been the last couple of years. And then that fourth start, right before he went on the IL against the Rangers, 7 shutout innings, 3 hits, 2 walks, 8 strikeouts. Like look dominant, look much more like the Justin Steele we've come to expect. And you hope that that was turning the corner right there and finding himself again for this 2025 season and the rest of the months left to play. And now you're losing that guy. You're losing that guy out of your rotation, off your team, and you're going to have to in a season where Jed Hoyer is in the last year of his contract. The Cubs are it's basically a necessity that the Cubs make the playoffs this season, and now you're doing it. You're going to have to try to do it without one of your best arms, and that's obviously a shame for the team themselves. But of course, again, like you feel for Justin Steele, like the baseball player, the person. Like this is going to be another health challenge. I mean, he's had a couple of hamstring injuries. Obviously, there was that one on opening day, 2024. So he's dealt with the injury bug at different points in his career, and yeah, you feel for a guy for having to go through another major surgery with a long timeline, a long recovery timeline. It's not easy. It's not easy on the body. It's not easy on the mind. And so, for Justin, like the hope for Justin is obviously like he can kind of push through this next year plus and get back to being the same pitcher and being in a better place physically, mentally, all that stuff. Because getting that news, like that's tough. That's a tough pill to swallow for him, for the team, for anyone that's rooted for Justin Steele. And so that's again, it's a tough loss. But again, the Cubs are trying to make the playoffs this season. Like this is honestly, it's kind of coming down to postseason or bust season at this point. Uh, and without Justice Steele, it's going to be a lot harder to do. And one thing that people are already kind of pointing to is like go out and make a trade. Go out and make a trade in mid-April and just add that guy. And I get where people are coming from with that because you don't have a immediate like one-to-one replacement for Justin Steele. I mean, Craig Counsell even said to reporters that like you don't basically you don't replace a guy like Justin Steele. Guys got to step up, but it's really hard to replace that kind of player. And that's the truth. Like there aren't a lot of arms out there, or even internally that can pitch to the level that we know Justin Steele can. And right here, I mean, I know Jed Hoyer talked to reporters out in San Diego, basically said that he's going to make calls on trades, and he's had pretty active deadlines the last couple of years, but especially losing one of your top of the rotation guys, like he's going to make calls for trades, but also made the point of like it's early, like who's trading, who are the sellers in mid-April, right? Like it's really hard to do a big blockbuster trade like that this early in the season unless you're willing to pretty much overpay, pretty much go out and just get your guy this early, like 3 months before the trade deadline, and you're gonna have to pay up for that for teams that right now are saying, well, we can kind of hold on to this guy until it gets closer, until July, until it gets closer to the trade deadline, and see who are the suitors, who's coming to call about this guy, right? I mean, you take the Marlins for example with Sandy Alcantara, and I reports I want to say it was out of the Athletic that they're kind of holding off on that decision to even trade him, and so at that point, it's like, how can the Cubs convince the Marlins to trade Sandy Alcantara this early? You're gonna have to pay up. You're gonna have to probably overpay a little bit to get that guy this early. And that again should go for really anyone that you look at a seller with a pretty strong rotation piece. It's not gonna be easy to get a trade done this in April. And I think that's the point that Jed Hoyer's made is that it's hard. It's hard to get things done this early in the season with trades when you still have so much of the season to go. And honestly, one of those things that also complicates it is not having Kyle Tucker from under contract for longer than 2025. Like that's a huge point because some of your best prospects are outfielders. Owen Casey, Kevin Alcantara. Like if you had Kyle Tucker locked down in right field for the next decade, probably feel more comfortable with letting one of those guys go, using him as a trade piece to bring in a rotation guy. Now, without Kyle Tucker, without the certainty that he's going to be around past this year, it's a little more risky. I think the Cubs probably feel a little more uncomfortable trading those guys and not having two really talented, highly thought of prospects in the system anymore, or one of two maybe, but like not having whoever it is not in the system anymore, knowing that you might have an outfield void to fill again next season. That's another complicating factor. And so right now, at this point, it's like, and I wrote about this on the other day whenever the Justin Steele news kind of dropped, that the Cubs are going to have to rely on their depth, the depth they've built up, and I think it's good depth. I do. I think the Cubs went out. Like one of the things that the Cubs didn't do this offseason was go and add a top of the line, top of the rotation guy. Corbin Burns was on the market, went to Arizona. The Cubs weren't really involved in that. And that's something that was obviously concerning going into the season because you didn't add that top of the rotation guy to go with Steele and Shota Imanaga. They did add some depth pieces when you talk about like Matthew Boyd. They have they added Colin Ray, who started on Sunday in Justin Steele's place. 3 2/3 innings pitched, 4 hits, a run, a walk, 5 strikeouts. And then you have the depth of Ben Brown, obviously, who already was in the opening day rotation and has seen the flashes of being a pretty high ceiling guy. But and then behind him, Javier Assad started the season on the IL with an oblique strain, I believe, left oblique strain. He made his first rehab start on Tuesday, 3 1/3 innings pitched and 66 pitches, and he's scheduled for another one on Sunday. And I don't know what the timeline is beyond that. You'd probably think at least another start, if not more. But so he's on the men. That's a depth piece coming up. Jordan Wicks was, I want to say it was last Friday, whatever day it was supposed to start for AAA Iowa, and they held him out of that start. They pushed his start back. He ended up pitching Sunday, I believe. Or the belief was that the Cubs were just keeping their options open, right? Get to Sunday when you need that fifth starter and see where your pitching is at. Obviously, Colin Ray took that start. So Jordan Wicks made his start on Sunday, 3 innings pitched, no runs, no hits, no walks, 5 strikeouts. So a good start for him there. And now he's depth. He's depth on the 40-man roster, ready to come up when the call comes. And so I mean, I'm not saying Jordan Wicks is going to be up tomorrow, but there's potential that you see Jordan Wicks back in the big leagues pretty soon. The other part of that depth is Cade Horton, who threw 3 starts this season, 1.46 ERA and 18 strikeouts in 12 and a third. He's looked good, but you have to remember that he didn't pitch after May 29th last season. A shoulder injury. I want to say it was a strain in the subscapularis or something like that. There was a shoulder injury that he didn't pitch once the calendar turned to June. So he only made 9 starts in 2024, 34 and a third innings pitched. So he just doesn't have a lot of innings, professional innings, especially at the upper levels. I don't expect the Cubs to call Horton up really anytime soon. Like, if more injuries present itself, your hands are kind of tied at that point for the Cubs. But I do know the Cubs want him just to continue getting good, consistent innings under his belt at the AAA level. I mean, probably some point this summer you're looking at, but it's not tomorrow. It's probably not this weekend. I don't foresee it happening anytime soon, as long as the rest of the rotation and the rest of the depth pieces stay healthy. So anyone calling for Cade Horton, like, obviously top pitching prospect on the Cubs and one of the top pitching prospects in baseball, but I think you're still going to have to wait and see wait some more time before you see that happen. So the Cubs have some depth pieces they can rely on right now to fill in for Justin Steele. You're not replacing that guy in your rotation. Like, again, it's going to be really tough, and who knows what the rotation looks like without Steele consistently going every 5th or 6th day, whatever that and would have ended up being. But those guys are going to have to step up. Those guys are going to have to step up and make good, solid starts, be there as depth pieces, or if they get inserted into the rotation, and step up and pitch good innings, cover good innings, but make them good, because Cubs trying to make the playoffs, and without Justin Steele, they need everyone in the rotation to step up. Honestly, like from Shota Imanaga on down the line, going to need all those guys to step up. So we did see the rotation step up over this last week, the last 6 games. Matthew Boyd had that quality start last Friday against the Dodgers, and then went out and threw 5 and a third with 2 runs allowed against the Padres on Wednesday. Ben Brown looked incredible last Saturday in Los Angeles. 6 innings pitched, 0 runs against the Dodgers. Another really, really eye-opening start for him. And obviously the hope is that he continues down that path. Jameson Taillon had 5 and a third innings, 2 runs against San Diego on Monday. And then Shota Imanaga, 5 innings pitched, 1 run that was unearned because of the 2 drop fly balls by Kyle Tucker and Gage Workman. So good starts, not the greatest starts you've ever seen out of a rotation, but good starts as the Cubs move forward without Justin Steele in the rotation. Again, they're going to have to lean on their depth for now. I expect Jed Hoyer to be active in active in the trade market and looking for starting pitching, whether that's more depth options or maybe even higher up in the rotation, or as far as like top of the line guys go. Like, I expect him to be more active and urgent in those trade talks, because the Cubs are going to need it. But for now, it's those guys that I've kind of named that are going to have to step up and lead this rotation, and frankly lead the team while they move forward without Justin Steele. The other news more on the negative side was Matt Shaw being optioned to Iowa on Tuesday. That was part of a series of roster moves where Matt Shaw and Nate Pearson were both optioned to AAA. Eli Morgan was put on the injured list with a right elbow impingement. Luke Little and Daniel Palencia were recalled from AAA, and Vidal Brujan was reinstated from the injured list. But obviously, the biggest one in that series of roster moves was Matt Shaw being optioned. Um, I think you can still have high hopes for Matt Shaw, and even high hopes for Matt Shaw this season as he gets more major league experience under his belt. But in 68 plate appearances, and honestly, like he got the first crack at the starting third base job, and I thought did a pretty solid job. Like I thought he looked like a capable third baseman out there. When you consider it's still a pretty new position that he's learning. I know he got a lot of experience at AAA last season, but relatively new position that he's playing. So I thought he actually looked pretty capable over there, but the bat just wasn't just wasn't cutting it. He slashed 172, 294, 241 with a 66 WRC plus in those 68 plate appearances. He did have a 14.7% walk rate, which was in the 88th percentile in baseball. And his chase rate wasn't terrible. It was 27.7%, which was 49th percentile in baseball. But you look at his baseball savant page and there's blue everywhere, like no low hard contact rates. His strikeout rate was 26.5%. In the 27th percentile and a 30.8% whiff rate, which is 23rd. Just wasn't hitting well at the big league level. And Jed Hoyer, again, in that same conversation with reporters, basically said that they just don't want to see him be on like survival mode, I guess is the way to say it. Like they don't want to just see him trying to survive at the plate because we know that uh, Matt Shaw has the ability to make hard contact, to drive balls in the gaps, all that kind of stuff. So they just didn't want to see him get to a point where he was just trying to survive at the plate, be just honestly just put the ball in play, get the bat on the ball. And so they're sending him down to AAA to just kind of get him back into a better place, get him back into a better place in the minor leagues at the AAA level. I expect Matt Shaw to work his way back up into the big leagues at some point this year because he's too talented not to. Like I do expect him to go back down to AAA and just hit, just go out and dominate AAA pitching. He's hit at every single level. He's been really good hitting at every single level. I expect him to be there again when he's down in the minor leagues and earn his way, hit his way back up to the big leagues. And then until then, it's just kind of on him to get back into that place where the Cubs believe he's ready to see everyday major league pitching and continue to get that experience. In the meantime, you're likely seeing a rotation or of some sort at third base when you talk about John Birdie, who started on Wednesday, Gage Workman, who started on Tuesday at third base, Vidal Brujan and Justin Turner probably mix in there as well. But that's going to be who you're sort of covering third base with the rest of the season. And, getting Alex Bregman in the offseason would have been very good, especially when you're talking about a team that's trying to make the playoffs this season. You probably don't want to go into that kind of season and having that rotation of third baseman of John Birdie and Gage Workman and those guys. That's probably not who you want to be your starting third baseman when you're going into a season when you have playoff expectations, postseason expectations. Honestly, like you probably don't even want to go in the season with Matt Shaw as that guy as a first-time major league player. Like getting Alex Bregman would have been huge for this Cubs team. They didn't go out and make a competitive offer in comparison to some of the other offers that Bregman did have. So this is where they're at. And now Matt Shaw just wasn't working out with him offensively. And now he's down back in the minor leagues and is going to have to work his way back up. And so that's disappointing, obviously, in the first 2.5, 3 weeks of Cubs baseball. But we're just going to have to see where Matt Shaw kind of goes from here and see if he can, again, work his way back up to the big leagues, but then come back up and lock down that third base job. I'll continue with kind of the direction he was on defensively, because I think he was on a good path, but just come back up and prove that he can progress with more experience against major league pitching. And then to end this, I do want to talk about the Cubs offense, which, again, entering Thursday, these are stats entering Thursday. They've probably changed with Thursday's games, but entering Thursday, they had the most runs in baseball, which was actually 17 more than the Yankees, who were second. And they were one of two teams to average 5.9 runs per game. The Yankees were ahead a little bit by percentage points, but the Cubs were right there, the second place in runs per game. They had a 121 team WRC plus, which was fifth in baseball, 772 OPS, which was fourth, 255 average, if that's your cup of tea, which was seventh in baseball, 340 weighted on base average, which was fourth, 10.6% walk rate, which was the fourth highest in baseball, combined with a 20.2% strikeout rate, the sixth lowest in baseball. They also had 29 stolen bases, the most in baseball, and their base running runs above average. It's a metric on Fangraphs, which is basically just measuring like your base running, your overall base running metric. That was they were first. They were first in baseball. So they were hitting the ball well, getting on base and causing havoc on the base paths, and that all led, combined with highly rated defense, 5.5 wins above replacement according to Fangraphs, which was second in Major League Baseball. That's combined position player group 5.5 F4. The lineup, the position player group has been outstanding. When you're talking about where the Cubs are at entering Thursday, 12-9 again, first place in the NL Central. The offense has had the biggest hand in that because they've been really really good scoring runs, getting on base, not striking out a lot, getting a lot of walks. Like they've done a lot of things right offensively. And then that's even with a couple of lower scoring games for them on this road trip. They still have those kind of numbers. So that's a huge positive for the Cubs 21 games into the season, that the offense has looked as good as it has, because even with the addition of Kyle Tucker, there are still some question marks, of course, with like younger players, the catching group. Matt Shaw, of course, as we talked about, hasn't had the best start to his major league career offensively. Like there were still some question marks out there, but a lot of guys have gone out and proven that they can be productive offensive players in this lineup and lead the Cubs to a point where at least 21 games into the season, they are one of the best lineups in baseball. Some of those guys, you got Kyle Tucker with a 172 WRC plus, which was 15th in baseball entering Thursday. Michael Busch with a 161 WRC plus, which was 19th, and Seiya Suzuki with a 156 WRC plus, which was 25th in baseball. So those three guys leading the way. And then I do want to point out that Pete Crow-Armstrong's numbers have drastically improved in the last week and a half or two. He currently has a 121 WRC plus, a 779 OPS, a 259 average, 310 on base, 469 slugging, 3 home runs, a triple, and 6 doubles. Now, of course, the way Pete Crow-Armstrong started the season wasn't what he wanted, what Cubs fans wanted, what the Cubs wanted. There was obviously some concerns about PCA not carrying over that better second half that he had last season. Through his first 12 games, 52 plate appearances, he was hitting 174, a 255 on base, a 239, a slugging percentage, a four, which is a 494 OPS, a 231 weighted on base average, and a 49 WRC plus. Just wasn't good. Just wasn't, frankly, just wasn't good from PCA. Good, really good production at all. And I wasn't, I wouldn't say I was concerned, but you start to think, okay, like where are these numbers going? Like it's a small sample, but when is PCA going to start breaking out of this? And I had just watching the numbers didn't show it, but just watching Pete, it looked like the plate approach was better. The plate, he looked like a better hitter than what he when he was struggling last season. He didn't look overmatched at the plate. He didn't look like a guy that couldn't find his swing at the big league level. The results weren't there, but it looked like a better hitter at the plate when you were looking at Pete Crow-Armstrong, even through those first 12 games. But now he's on a pretty solid hot streak offensively over his last 9 games, which is 37 plate appearances, hitting 371, 389 on base, 771 slugging, which is good for an 1160 OPS, a 223 WRC plus, and a 494 weighted on base average. He's got 3 doubles, a triple, and 3 home runs in that stretch. He had that 2 home run game in Los Angeles on Sunday, I believe. And then he had actually that nice lefty on lefty home run in San Diego on Wednesday. Has looked like the results are coming, right? The results are here in those over the last 9 games for him. And so, like, again, I had thought even watching Pete when the results weren't there that he did look like a better hitter at the plate. I thought that again, I'll say it again, like he didn't look like the same hitter who was struggling so badly last season. Just the results weren't there. The results have shown themselves in this last 9 games. Starting with the cold series against Texas. Those last 9 games have been the flip, the turn of the page, the complete opposite from what those first 12 games were. Again, small sample size, even smaller sample size than what it was in the first 12 games. Again, 52 plate appearances compared to 37. But like this is this is the hitter that the Cubs kind of need Pete Crow-Armstrong to be. They want him to be. They believe he can be. I mean, not specifically the last 9 games. Like this is a major hot stretch that would be so hard to carry over an entire season, over an entire career. But numbers like this, especially when you're talking about the numbers where his stats are now during the season, I had it. I don't remember at 121 WRC plus. Like if Pete Armstrong can do that over a whole season, combined with what we know he can do as a defender, as a Gold Glove caliber defender, and just a menace on the base paths, you're looking at a really valuable player. You're looking at a guy that when reports are coming out that the Cubs have or have even approached PCA about contract extensions, or he's at least asked about it and says he's interested in a contract extension or on being with the Cubs beyond where his pre-arb and arb years are, like that a production like you can see from PCA overall this season, where the numbers are at right now, like that kind of production makes you want to lock that guy down as soon as possible and make sure he's here for his prime years. Like if I'm the Cubs, those are the numbers that I'm looking at as like if not when instead of if you're gonna extend PCA. So it's been again 9 games, small sample size, as close to as small as it could possibly get, but a lot better production, just a lot better of a mood. I think honestly, like when you look at like Cubs Twitter and stuff like that, just like a better mood when it comes to talking about what PCA is doing, because he has been just a completely different hitter results wise in these first 9 games, and you who knows how long that stretch is for? Who knows how long PCA keeps his hot streak going? He's he's a young hitter. I want to say he's like 23 years old still. He's gonna go. He's gonna have his peaks and valleys as a hitter. Like just every hitter has that, especially young guys. Gonna have their peaks and valleys, but if he can have better, higher peaks than he has lower valleys, if he can keep those valleys from extending for too long, I think you're looking at a pretty good hitter that maybe you can turn into the leadoff guy, but just a pretty good hitter and just a very overall valuable player to have on this Cubs team. As again, a postseason expectation team this year, but a team this isn't the only year that they're going to have playoff expectations. Like this is going to be moving forward, wanting to be and expecting to be a playoff team. PCA's on that path to being a valuable player and a guy that you expect to help in getting to the postseason every year. Like that's the path he's on. It's currently the hot streak is there, combined with the defense and the base running, and we'll see where it goes. But a lot to like from what PCA has shown over the last 9 games. Now, before we get out of here, we got an 8-game homestand at Wrigley Field coming up. The Cubs, we're talking about them going to Tokyo to play the Dodgers. They had the West Coast trip to start the year, another West Coast trip now. I'm sure they're happy to be home at Wrigley Field for the next 8 games. There are actually still 3 off days mixed in there. They have off day. They had the off day today, obviously, with another off day on Monday, another off day on next Thursday, and then another off day on the Monday after that. So they still have 3 more off days coming up in April. So when you're talking about the rotation stuff, that could help as far as solving if you need a 5th starter. So that could be helpful. But coming up, the 8-game homestand, 3 against the Diamondbacks, 2 against the Dodgers, and 3 against the Phillies, who the Phillies entering Thursday 10-8, which is second in they're 10-8, second in the National League East, and they're tied for 10th as far as win percentage in Major League Baseball. I forgot to write down the Diamondbacks, but I think they're honestly, I think they might have like one of the top 5 records in baseball. Like that whole NL West is stacked. The Diamondbacks for sure, another good team. So 8 games against potential playoff teams. This Cubs April stretch has not gotten any easier. We knew that it was. I don't remember who put that chart out, but it was like the hardest month for any team of any month in 2025. So the fact that they're 12-9 right now, going into the back half of the month, and that's a huge positive. To be where they're at, 12-9, first place in the Central. I mean, if they can do well in these next 8 games, you're still looking at a team that's probably going to be in first place in the NL Central, and then you're getting closer and closer to that May stretch where the schedule lightens up a little bit. So Cubs are in a good place right now, coming off a 3-3 West Coast trip, a pretty successful one at that, I would say, based on the teams they played. Coming home for 8 games against 3 more stiff tests from the National League, and we'll see what they do. Colin Ray against Colin Burns, or Corbin. Sorry, Colin Ray against Corbin Burns on Friday. Saturday, you got Ben Brown versus Zach Allen, and then Sunday is Jameson Taillon versus Merrill Kelly. That's against the Diamondbacks. 3 games at Wrigley Field against the Diamondbacks. And yeah, we'll see where the Cubs are at when you come out of that. We'll have another Cubs episode for you coming soon. But besides that, like, please, if you're watching on YouTube, like, comment, subscribe. If you're listening to the podcast, subscribe, rate, review, do all that good stuff. We appreciate the support. My guy Herb Lawrence doing the White Sox shows here on the Addison to 35th podcast. We appreciate the support, but we'd love even more from all of you. So tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell your family, tell whoever, and let's keep helping us grow this thing because this is fun. This I mean, I just do the Cubs stuff, but this could be a very fun season for the Chicago Cubs. It's already been fun to talk about with you guys here on the Addison to 35th podcast. But let's keep growing. Let's keep doing this and keep growing even more while we see if the Cubs can make a postseason run. Like, honestly, I think we all kind of expect them to at this point. So that's been it for today's Cubs episode of the Addison to 35th podcast. I'm Ryan Herrera. I'll have another Cubs episode for you soon. We'll talk to you then. Have a good one.